understand that if that could have been avoided, it was the realtor's job to see that it could have been avoided.
And so the way to avoid it is there a disclosure or in writing?
Well, the disclosure can't. I'm not a believer in a lot of boilerplate canned disclosures. I think they are used far too much. No judge and no jury gives them any credibility whatsoever. The client could have initialed every line of every page, and what we call the weight of evidence when they're in when you admit these things in court is minimal. What the court expects, what a jury, most of them homeowners, expect is that you as a realtor took them under your wing and made sure that they understood everything and didn't shove a disclosure under their nose in 10-point type, legal size paper, and said sign here. So it's not the disclosure that solves the problem, it's the actual counseling of the client. If you got to read everything to them, you read everything to them. But they have to understand. Now, if you send, if somebody comes and sees a CPA for tax advice, comes and sees a lawyer for legal advice, that is, you're fulfilling your obligation as a realtor because you have a right to rely on other professionals. I don't know how many realtors, I certainly didn't when I was selling real estate, got up on the roof to look for myself to see if the roof was intact. You relied on the licensed roof inspector, and you had every right to. It's the same thing with these legal issues or with tax issues. You have a right to rely on other professionals. But if you give advice, you have to make sure you're right, and you have to make sure you can document that later when your client forgets that you gave them that advice.
Which they oftentimes will if there's tens of thousands of dollars at stake.
Absolutely true. And so my advice has always been, over the last 15 years, when I started teaching classes for realtors and counseling realtors, was to not worry about the form disclosures, but to do what lawyers do. I found an interesting thing when I began to practice law, that lawyers don't give these disclosures to clients. They're almost non-existent. What they do is have a conversation with their client on the phone, in person, doesn't matter. And if they're talking about something that is substantive, something that's important, something that somebody is going to use to make a decision that could be crucial, they follow up that discussion with what we respectfully call a CYA letter.